How many of you would like to have more bucks on your land for this fall, for this hunting season? To see more bucks, get more bucks on your trail cameras. You can do that in one off season. It doesn't take long. You can do that with changing how you hunt. There's a lot of things you can do, and when it all adds up, you can drastically change the number of bucks you're setting your sights on during the daylight. We don't really care at night. You don't want to be the nighttime parcel where you see bucks at 2 in the morning, 4 in the morning. That doesn't count. You're not doing anything good if the bulk of the bucks you see after dark. You want those bucks in and around daylight. And I'm not saying that they don't come in an hour after or half hour after. That means they're close to your land. You're doing some great things. That's a good thing. But one of the tests that we looked at, a long time ago is a ratio that you should be seeing at least one mature buck during the daylight for every one you are seeing at night. If not, you have a lot of work to do, and these tips right here will help you greatly. The cool thing again, number one, you can do this in one season. This is something that takes years. I don't like when people say, because I've seen it be the opposite so many times to know how true it is, I don't like people saying that it's something that takes years. This takes a decade. This takes 5 years. Now, if you're in limited, low quality, poor habitat where there's no deer, it takes time to build a deer herd. Now, I've been in areas where there's 10 deer per square mile, 12 deer per square mile, and there's not a lot going on. There's predators, poor habitat, so it takes a little while to build a herd. But even then, it's amazing the differences you can make every single year. Noticeable, extreme changes from one year to the next as you're building, let alone if you already have decent bucks in the area. Because number two, you're building a fall parcel. You can take from other people's bucks, quote bucks. It's not that we own these bucks. It's just sometimes these bucks are hanging around someone else's land. They have good summer food. They have a little bit of fall food. They throw out some trees here and there, some shrubs. They have some grass. They take deer, or they have deer, because they build this big summer doe population. There's deer hanging around. They have a little bit of food in the fall. Really easy to take those bucks that are on the land and displace them on yours, even a half mile, 3/4 of a mile away. That's what we're doing in Minnesota here. We have a lot of neighbors with summer food. We take advantage of them. And if you're one of my summer neighbors, I'm sure you're going to keep doing the same. So I don't really care. And if you did the same over there, now you can hold deer. We can hold deer. We both build herds. Actually, the area is better off for it. But in the meantime, we'll hold bucks from other people's parcels that are there all summer long. A lot of times during the winter, dropping their sheds. And we're going to hold them a high percentage of the time on our land during the fall, because we're focusing on fall food, fall cover, and that's the lowest hole in the bucket. Both of those, basically fall habitat, winter habitat. We want those deer on our land. I could care less where they're at in June, July, May, August, and even early September, because I already know they're alive. I already made it through the season, and we're just waiting them to come back home during the fall. Home meaning the place where we can actually influence the herd, build a herd, and of course, if you do both of those, you're going to have a great hunt. You can't have one without the other. Focusing on fall will allow you, and that's why I say right up here with OPB, what's that mean? Other people's bucks. Meaning you're pulling bucks that are already in the neighborhood to a very unfair advantage and percentage of overall bucks in the area onto your land. You do that by building a fall parcel. Number three, dispersing yearling bucks. If you have multiple food sources, but you have inside corners, coves, angles, different elevation changes, then you're making your parcel welcome to dispersing yearling bucks. UP of Michigan, we went from one spike in 99 to 17 different bucks in 2006. Passed up 11 of them, shot 2 others. So 13 bucks I had go before my stand where we didn't even see a buck in 99. There's an area where there's a half fawn per doe going into fall. That's the fall recruitment. 1/2 of a fawn per doe going into the fall because the predators up there. Half of those would die in the wintertime. So you're looking at 1 fawn for every 4 does going into the spring, and only half of those were bucks. So if we had 7 or 8 does and fawns, or does that we built on our property, that didn't mean that our bucks were going to add up very fast at all. In fact, it's hard to get them to add up. You know how you add them up is by dispersing yearling bucks. In a wilderness area like that, dispersing yearling bucks will travel miles to find a new home. In an ag setting, it's typically about 1.5 miles. That's a statistical average of how far those yearling bucks will travel. And why are they traveling? Why are they dispersing? Because the mothers kick them out of the herd. So if the mother's still alive, they'll kick them out 90% of the time. If the mother's dead, they'll stay about 70% of the time. You don't want them to necessarily stay on your land. You want to collect someone else's just because you're trying to avoid inbreeding. and you're trying to protect the gene pool. So that's not necessarily a good thing. People say, well, let's shoot a doe that has twin button bucks and let them stay on here. What if they're breeding their sister the next year? It's not a good thing. And I don't know what the exact biology or science is behind that, but inbreeding among any animal species is not a good thing. So really, when it comes to dispersing yearling bucks, they're dispersing because of female social pressure. The last place they want to find is a place dominated by does. People think more does, more bucks. Couldn't be further from the truth. And it all starts when they're young. They're getting kicked out, stomped on, and pushed out of the herd by their mother, enough for them to actually leave their birthplace and their mother and travel 1.5 miles on average to get to a place where they feel like it's buck friendly. What does that mean? Means if you have too many does, especially too many summer does, you're not going to attract any bucks. If you have big food sources dominated by does, you're not going to attract those young bucks. So having corners to your food plots, edges, little coves. We like long food plots if we can get them, if it fits the land. We like hunting plots next to big food plots. A lot of times those little teeny hunting plots are those, you'll find those a little brat pack of yearling bucks. When I say yearling bucks, that's 1.5 years old. They're either dispersing as fawns, which is a few months old, yearlings, which is 1.5 years, 15 months old, but they're dispersing as typically yearling when they're first set of antlers. But bottom line is that's how you can collect bucks. Really easy to do so on a land that doesn't have too many does, that has multiple places for deer to feed, has separated cover by thick cover. Again, you're just looking at fall food and fall cover, trying to have enough. And if you make a property like that and you're not applying too much hunting pressure, you're not only going to attract other people's bucks from other neighbors, even 4 or 5-year-old bucks that have established residency somewhere else because they like your land better. And it takes a year or two and they figure that out. But even those yearling bucks, just that year, to be able to attract them and add more bucks in your land just in one hunting season. You can attract older bucks to your land just in 1 year, one growing season, from one fall, let alone those little bucks that are dispersing. Low pressure hunting. Be the low pressure person in the neighborhood. Most people aren't. Most people are sitting on food plots. They're spooking deer off their food plots. Now, if they have tons of food and they have a big property and they have lots of habitat, they might be able to hunt pretty bad and still hold a lot of deer on their land that they don't shoot to a very high percentage, but there's a lot of deer there because they keep hanging around the food. So when you're over here and you're actually applying very little pressure to fall food and cover that you have on your land, you're letting the deer kind of lay where they're at, and there's enough room for them, there's enough separation, there's enough thick cover to divide deer and separate them, then you're going to attract an unfair number of bucks to your land just simply by hunting that setup. Imagine if you're doing all that, your neighbors aren't planting fall food and fall cover to a very high degree, your neighbors aren't practicing very good hunting pressure, they're not managing the hunting pressure well, and you do all of that, it's very quick. One growing season and the bucks are on your land. Doesn't take very long at all. Finally, limit the number of does. How do you do that? Don't plant a bunch of summer food. Grow thick cover. Don't plant a lot of summer food, and a lot of those does and fawns will be on your neighbors. Let them shoot some of the does and fawns. Send them packing to your neighbors. You want your neighbors to have an overabundance of does and fawns, because guess what? That means you'll have the bucks. You'll have the older bucks because they don't want to hang out with those does all but 10 days of the year during the primary rut, a handful of days during the secondary rut, a handful of days during if there's a third rut. So when you add it up, it's a very low percentage of the overall season that bucks want to be around does. And even then, if there's too many does, guess what? There's no room for mature bucks, even if they're not going to be in there fighting for all those does, all that commotion, all that stress. They'd rather be over to this small doe family group over here, this one over here, have their own spots for food, their own spots for cover. It all goes back to those yearling buck dispersal times, and it doesn't get any more reclusive or any less reclusive as those bucks age from a yearling buck. They actually crave that more and more as they grow older, and that's what keeps them safe. Send those does packing by not planting an overabundance or any summer food at all. It's one thing if you're in herd building mode, plant a bunch of summer food, but I'll tell you what, the doe factory is real. If you have too many does and fawns on your property, having more does and fawns on your property during the summertime, does that are here today are here to stay. They're going to override your property. Pretty easy way to not only not attract bucks from your neighbors, but to keep those bucks on your neighbors by repelling them from your own, because you're making your property more summer friendly than fall friendly when it comes to mature bucks. These are all some steps that you can do, that we've done, that I do, that I did in my property in Minnesota this year. You know, maybe your answer is just to go buy 1,000 acres, 2,000 acres. But a lot of us can't afford that. We can't afford to try to encompass our mistakes by the size of the acreage. Instead, you have to make the most with what you've got. And these are some great steps to help you do so. And it can help you do so this fall, right now, coming up. The season starts in 3 months in a lot of states, 3.5 months in others. And there's so much that you can do. And we'll try to keep you informed of all those things you can do going into this season alone. Folks, I want to make sure you check out my web class video series, whether it's how to design your food plot program or how to design your property in general. And we have a new one coming out that'll be how to hunt the rut. But these bucks back here are a testament. Some of these bucks go back to 93. They're even in different states. I urge you to check out those web classes that you can help yourself, help your land, help your hunt. The link is in the description. And also for those that have tried them out, I encourage you to offer some feedback in the comments below. Thank you.